Welcome to Honest Heresy. I'm your host, Rob, and today is going to be a review of the Imperialis Militia army book, I guess, although not. It's a free PDF that's available on Warhammer Community, which they released just today, so I'm reading this for the first time and hopefully giving you a review and just getting you pumped up, because I'm pretty pumped up. Let me tell you what made me excited about this. In the article talking about the release, they talked about the militia. There are, if you were to take the Horus Heresy and you were to take the Solar Auxilia as the elite, the kind of the custodies like, compared to Space Marines, then the militia are the potato-eating, ditch-digging survivors wielding a pitchfork in a battle against, you know, almighty gods, effectively. They are the scrubbers. They suck, okay? They're just trying their hardest and they're there, which is fun. Although you can obviously use these rules to do a bunch of kit bashes and, you know, your own themed armies, which is very fun. And the most exciting line from this article about the release of this, if you ever wanted to make an Abhuman army using Necromunda squat miniatures, this is the list for you. Now, I personally believe in this edition, we'll see both a squat army, like an actual book, a Liber, as well as maybe for some other factions, Zotes, Beastmen, all sorts of things. I personally think we'll see those in the future. Maybe I'm crazy. But they've released this. You can obviously download this for free. Go check it out yourself. Here is the documentation. So they do start out initially by explaining that all of the unit entries that you can find inside this book are expanded unit entries compared to the core ones that you'll find in things like Libers. They've been pretty specific when they have been writing these books, talking about things being expanded, things being core. It's been good, actually. It's really good. They have clearly mapped out what they plan on additions and expansions being, which I think is really positive, because it means if they ever want to like reset in 3 years, they could just be like, cool, all expanded is gone. We're sticking with core, or whatever the situation might be. So I think that's quite interesting. Anyway, this is Imperialis Militia, and this is the units you're going to be able to take inside of it. So we've got the Imperialis Militia Army list. We're going to be going through that first. But for High Command, you've only got one commander, the Force Commander. For Command choices, we've got a Discipline Master Cadre, Command Troop, Mounted Command Troop. That's correct. I'm really excited about the Mounted Command Troop, especially since the last time this was released, we've gained some really amazing sculpts, specifically out of the 40k range for some cavalry units in, you know, for militia or guardsmen, really. Then we have the Rogue Psyker as well. Amazing models you can design for this. Elites, we've only got the Grenadier Troop. Heavy Assault, we've got the Ogryn Brute Troop. Everyone calm down. Very exciting. I love an Ogryn. Multiple Ogryns, forget about it. The Beastmaster Troop, also exciting. For troops, you've got Infantry Troop who have line. That's what you need to score points. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about that before we, after this, but that's really important. And then we got the Beastmaster Troop, no, sorry, the Levy Troop, which are expendable. Then for support, you got the Militia Medicae, Fire Support Troop, Rapier Troop, Field Gun Battery, and the Heavy Ordnance Battery, a load of shooting at range. Then for War Engines, you've got the Sentinel Patrol. For transports, you've got the Militia Arvus Lighter, cutest little plane you ever did see. Malicious Utility Hauler, which, if you've ever been a fan of Necromunda, is the big truck that they released, which is amazing. And you could basically start getting into the Heresy and Necromunda all at the same time. And it does make sense that they would do that because this is from the same studio that's also making Necromunda at the same time. So making them cross-pollinate is sensible. And then the Militia Industrial Rig is also a similar thing. It's that big truck. For heavy transports, those are transports as well, which is really nice. Just your regular transports, which is really good in your in your Crusade Force chart. That's cool. And then heavy transports, you've got the Militian Gorgon Transport, which is this, which is no longer on sale. So either kit bash something yourself or 3D print something. Okay. And then for Recon, you've got the Reconnaissance Troop and the Cavalry Troop. Let's go. Fast attack, you got the All-Terrain Patrol, Militia Scout Rover, Militia Thunderbolt Heavy Fighter. Armor, we have the Militia Lemurus Tank and the Militia Malkador Heavy Tank. Lords of War, you have the Militia Baneblade, and then we have all the special rules and stuff. So that's everything that's inside the roster. I'm very, very excited about Ogryns and Beastmasters, but I'm also excited about the Industrial Rig. I love the concept of just bringing some trucks to the Horus Heresy, to the grand galactic scale. I want a beautifully painted, perfect Saturnine Praetor to have to smash my truck full of absolute goons that have only lived on baked beans their entire lives. That's a real nice kind of like disparate dichotomy between those two things. Amazing. Yeah, you can Mad Max it, which is very, very exciting. Okay, so we got some special rules. We have some special rules for the Imperial Militia. So this is where we'll start. The first one at the top is additional reaction points. Most of the armies have something similar to this. If an army's primary detachment is from the Imperialis Militia army list, the controlling player gains 1 additional reaction point if that detachment contains any models with a planetary overlord trait. So I'm going to assume many of you are new to the Horus Heresy. If you're not, please do let me know in the comments. But reactions are something that you do as the inactive player or the reactive player. My opponent's taking a turn. I get a certain amount of reaction points to do things like shoot at them if they shoot at me, shoot at me if they charge me, shoot at me if they land. They're not all shooting. Move away if they move too close to me. I only get a certain amount of reaction points, depends on the size of the game. I did a video about this, so go watch that video. Hopefully I'll give you some insight. But gaining an additional reaction point is really cool. Okay, also they point out that some of your units are going to either have the Loyalist or the Traitor trait. Okay, so some of those units mean that some of those having one or the other means you're not going to necessarily be able to use them together. And some will just have the Allegiance trait, which means you can give them either Loyalist or Traitor. Pretty simple. Okay, so this army has got 2 special rules. Kind of consider these to be your army special rules, but you're going to have so many more special rules later on that we'll go through those as we go through them. So the first one is Irregulars. Okay, with limited military training or experience, few militia forces are truly prepared for the horrors of the Horus Heresy. Those units committed to the war for the Imperium would be forced to rely on sheer numbers to carry the day, sending wave after wave of ill-prepared and under-equipped warriors to their deaths. So this means a unit composed of models with a special rule can still score objectives when pinned, which is a status or a tactical status, stunned or suppressed. All 3 of those are tactical statuses. Normally, when you are statused or you have status I, that's wrong, then you cannot score objectives. Now we're going to talk about scoring in the Horus Heresy very quickly, because this might be the first video you've watched on it. There will be objectives on the board. They will be worth a certain amount of points. If I run onto it and I score it, as long as my unit is eligible to score, I'll score however many points the objective says. If it's a 3, I'll score a 3, which is good. If it's a 1, I'll score a 1. If I have the line special rule, I'll score additional victory points. If I have the Vanguard special rule and I kill a unit or fight a unit or chase off a unit that's on an objective, I'll score bonus points for that. If I have the oh god, I've forgotten its name, expendable special rule, then you won't gain bonus points based on how much my expendable is. And the only way you win a game of the Horus Heresy is how many victory points you score. It is not based on anything else. So that's really important. How many points you score is really key. So having a unit, or units, sorry, that can hold objectives even if they gain statuses is really strong. However, there is a downside to this in that you only score 1 victory point. So an objective might be worth 3 victory points, but if you do have a unit on it you only have 1 unit that's eligible to contest, it's got a status on it, it's only going to give you 1 victory point. But that's good. Better than 0, which you would have had before. Okay, so that's what the irregular special rule is. So we'll have to remember that. And then they also have the special rule 3rd line, which unfortunately means just like they found any old truck in the back and they sent it out to battle. So this is all to do with vehicles. And models with this special rule lose a hull point when they suffer a glancing hit. When you shoot a vehicle, you'll do a glancing hit or you'll do a penetrating hit. Penetrating hit will reduce how many hull points you have, effectively life, and you'll die. A glancing hit means that you'll roll on a glancing hit table. This means that even a glancing hit means that you are going to lose like a hull point or a life. That's not good. Basically, your vehicles aren't strong, okay? That's the TLDR. So your vehicles aren't strong, but your not your humans, your irregulars are kind of okay. I mean, the ability to kit bash this army is insane. If you think about it, the ability to do Necromunda Hordes, all of the amazing Necromunda sculpts, and make them be the irregulars that you fight for, or, bring in any other kits from the Warhammer 40,000 range. Pretty exciting. So those are the special rules. It's also worth noting as well is with vehicle types, you also get a vehicle type called a Super Heavy. Super Heavy, if it takes a glancing hit, will suffer 2 hull points versus just 1. So even more of a downside for being one of those big beasties. Now, the really exciting thing about running a militias list is this table that you can see here. It's the mixing and matching of being able to choose different abilities to really kind of customize, kit bash, or design your own unique twist. And I'm sure, obviously, this is Horus Heresy 3.0. Many people have already done this in the past. So if you do have some amazing armies that you've done or ideas, or if reading through this, you come up with some fun ideas for some projects, please do leave them in the comments below. I'm personally very, very excited about that. So of these, you choose one, and that ability or effect applies to your whole army. And if you have a character or a model, with a planetary overlord trait, which you will do have, then you will be able to choose a second one. So it's effectively like choosing these 2 abilities. It reminds me a lot of Age of Wonders 4, if anyone's ever played that, where you can kind of mix and match these racial traits to build like these really fun things. So there's a big ass list. Okay, we've got gene crafted, industrial levies, Ogryn Conscripts, Voidborn, warrior elite. It's very Necromunda, which is very cool. So the first of the provenances that you could choose for your army is Abhuman Muster. And I am going to read the story because it's a story-based game. Some strains of humanity have dwelt too long in the dark places between the stars and have regressed or mutated in some fashion that leaves them unacceptable in most imperial societies. Most common are the so-called Beastmen, human keen with stable beast-like mutations prized for their perceived prowess at war. Many consider such creatures subhuman, but often these warriors have proven themselves the equal of any unafflicted human in both intelligence and loyalty amid the horrors of the Horus Heresy. Okay, so Beastmen, upgrade, although you can do what you need. Okay, so an army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rules, so if they already have that, in this army have their base strength characteristic modified by 1. So +1 modify to their strength. Their base ballistic skill characteristic, though, is down by 1, and they gain the impact, which is, if you've charged, leadership special rule. So +1 to their leadership in the turn in which they've charged. The following item are added to the militia armaments list. The assault shield. This is not a boarding shield. So you can add an assault shield onto your units for +1 point per model. So what does an assault shield do? It's a great question. Well, an assault shield grants a variable invulnerable save. Effectively, it gives you a 6-up invulnerable save or a 5-up invulnerable save against shooting attacks that are made as part of a volley attack, which is what's done in the charge phase, or an overwatch reaction. In addition, the unit gains the shield trait and heavy subtype. Heavy subtype means that you get +1 to your cool, and also maybe you can't rush. And the shield trait also gains access to allowing you to make the shield wall reaction, which when you got to spend a reaction point in order to do it, it means when you are shot at or a volley attack is done at you, you can gain +1 to your toughness. Okay, pretty good. So for 1 point. I'm going to get a 6-up invulnerable save. That feels really good, especially if I can take this on loads of dudes. Loads and loads of dudes. Just constantly rolling 6-up invuln saves feels pretty spicy. The +1 toughness might come in good at the right time. Beastmen, +1 strength. Obviously, that's really good. And if we're able to put this on like Ogryn as an example, if Ogryn are going to be able to become irregulars, if they have the irregular special rule, then we're going to be able to get +1 strength on them. That's fun. We could use Minotaurs instead of like Ogryn, which is pretty spicy. So Abhuman Muster's very cool. Our next provenance is Alchem-jackers. Something of a jacker myself. Whether through a debased cultural type or simply through the use of extreme measures to guarantee the combat worthiness of a penal unit. The troops and perhaps even the officers of this army have their resolve assisted by chemical injectors or stim inhalers in battle. The inherent insanity of certain cult forces has much the same effect. Okay, so an army with this provenance gains the following special rule. If the controlling player of your army is making a leadership check or a cool check for a unit in this army that only contains models with the irregular special rule, they may ignore negative modifiers to leadership or cool applied to panic, pinning, stun, or suppressive. Effectively, if I'm normally a cool value of 10, let's say, and I have someone does like suppressive X, suppressive 3, then I would take a test on a 7. But I can ignore that now. Also, you're probably not going to be cool value 10 in this army. So this means that you're not going to take as many statuses. But seeing as you can already hold objectives, even if you're statist, not sure you're that bothered. Also, every model in a unit that includes models with the irregular special rule and infantry type in this army can have friends on selected for it for +1 point per model. So friends on is a combat stimulant, and a model with friends on gains hatred, which is going to be +1 to wound against infantry, cavalry, or automata, so +1 to wound in combat, and a healer special rule, which means you're not going to be able to hold objectives with that unit. So yeah, this one's not quite as spicy for me. Like I don't hate the +1 to wound. That's all right. That's not bad. The next provenance is the Armory of the Old Knight. Some worlds maintain vast arsenals of war gear forged in an age before the fall of human civilization and the onset of Old Knight. Such societies field militia whose lack of training is balanced by the fearsome weaponry they wield and the archaeotech armor which encases them. It's pretty cool, actually. So if you're someone, especially if you're like a really cool kit basher and you want to do loads of like additional like artifice armor style stuff, or add some cool symbology on it, the Armory of Old Knight is really evocative. An army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rule and the infantry type in this army have their base armor save characteristic improved by 1 step and gain slow and purposeful special rule. So purposeful means that you can't pursue enemy units after you've defeated them in combat, which is fine anyway. They're cowards. You don't want to chase them down. This provenance may not modify any model's armor save characteristic to a 2+, beyond a 2+, basically. Okay, so your infantry are generally better armored. This feels like you throw this with Abhuman Muster. You're stronger and you're better armored. That's pretty decent. You also gain access, though, to loads of different cool weapons. The Volkite Serpenter, Volkite Chargers, Volkite Cavaliers, and Volkite Culverns, meaning you could maybe build a Culvern list, a Cavalier list. We'll talk about that later. Some of these are expensive, and I'm not 100% certain Volkite's quite as good. It doesn't necessarily have the AP to deal with those pesky Space Marines with line holding objectives, or Chaos Space Marines, depending on who you want to shoot at. But they're wicked and cool looking weapons and very thematic. Next, the next provenance you could have is the Arms of the Omnissiah. Some worlds benefit from the patronage of a forge world in return for tributes to the most intellectually gifted of the planet's population, or maybe descended from some lost or abandoned Mechanicum enclave. These armaments they possess lend considerable strength to militia hosts of such worlds. So for this provenance, the following item is added to the militia armaments, meaning you gain a Laslock, which is a range 18, 1 shot at strength 4, AP 6, and it's damage 1. It's not the best. I have this on my tech thralls. I'm not too bothered about it, but I guess you get it anyway. And also you can add the arc rifle to the militia special weapons list. In addition, though, and I think this is very cool, you can take the Triaris armored conveyor, which is the Mechanicum like land tank, as a heavy transport option in the heavy transport slot. You can also take the Kriaros battle tank as well. If you do take any of those, though, you are -1 to your ballistic skill, and they also gain the 3rd line special rule, which means any glances are obviously going to be penetrating hits, which is worth talking about. They also lose their Mechanicum trait, and they get replaced with the Imperialis Militia trait. So the actual land train, the Triaris armor conveyors, are actually a pretty decent transport. Big tank, stick loads of dudes in, send it forward. It's actually pretty sick. Like maybe you could have a bunch of Beastmen, and the idea of taking, because this is in plastic now, like the idea of getting, I mean, this is an amazing document. This might be the most exciting thing that exists in all of Warhammer. The idea of already taking a Mechanicum tank and messing it up and making it a Beastman tank and then having loads of Beastmen pour out is pretty cool. Our next provenance is the Augmented Levy. Those unaugmented thralls conscripted into the tech guard of the Mechanicum Oath worlds in times of dire need undergo rapid forced augmentation, a process which uses crude neurosuppressors to numb the subject to the horrors of war. I mean, more than anything else, that's so metal. It's, I mean, also truly dark, and also maybe a sign of things to come. However, an army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rule and the infantry type in this army gain the right of pure thought special rule, which is in the Liber Mechanicus book. Thankfully, as a Mechanicus player, I roughly know what this does, which means you won't have to take panic checks from any losses suffered via shooting attacks, although still, if a weapon with the flamer ability or flamer with panic affects you, you're still going to have to, or not just a flamer, any weapon with panic, you're still going to have to take those panic tests. So one panic test, no, the other panic test, yes. Also, you can't control objectives. Oh no, you can't make reactions is the other negative as well. So kind of okay. I would have liked to have seen add more to the cool status or the cool stat on these guys. That would have been good. However, every model in a combat troop unit in this army can have a repair automata special rule selected for it for +2 points per model as well. So you can also bring some automata with you, repair them, decent. So this is kind of okay. I guess, you know, you could have +1 strength and also like be dumb augmented levy. That's pretty spicy. That's pretty interesting. Our next provenance is Cyber-augmetics. The detachment hails from a highly technologically advanced or even void nomadic culture which habitually surgically enhances its troops with augmetic implants, either to improve combat performance or mitigate disfigurement or environmental damage. Amazing. Again, just chip out all those Necromunda models that you want to find, get some amazing 3D sculpts and drop them in. So much life here and available. An army with this provenance gains the following benefit. All models with the irregular special rule and the infantry type in this army gain the Eternal Warrior 1 special rule. Eternal Warrior 1 means that you reduce the damage that you would take from a weapon or from an attack down by 1 to a minimum of 1. So if it's damage 3, it'll be damage 2. If it's damage 2, it'll be damage 1. If it's damage 1, it'll still be damage 1. And in addition, you increase their base cool and base intelligence characteristics up by 1. Which is not too bad, especially if you do decide to take a Psyker. This is a way of making it so your Psyker is going to be that much more intelligent for passing your psychic checks, which is pretty decent. Any model with the regular special rule and the commander or sergeant subtype in this army may have rad grenades selected for it for +5 points per model as well. I'm right in thinking that rad grenades will produce one of the phage abilities, which is like a permanent reduction in the statistic. Off the top of my head, though, can't remember which one. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments below. This one's is pretty good, although we have found out. I did just make a mistake, by the way. This gives +1 to your intelligence, which is, as an AdMech player, I think that helps me with psychic powers. But if you're anyone but not an AdMech player, psychic powers are based on your willpower statistic. So +1 to your intelligence check is maybe going to help you with repairing vehicles and such things, not to your psychic effects. That's worth pointing out. Anyway, this is a cool Cyber-augmetics. The Cyber-augmetics is a cool provenance, although we have Ogryns, which we're really excited about. They don't have the irregulars keyword. So which units are really going to benefit from something like Eternal Warrior? I guess it's going to be things like your artillery, your actual characters, your force commanders, as an example, are going to benefit from that, but maybe not like the big brick of fighty dudes that maybe you would want to benefit from it. Either way, it's very cool. The next provenance is the Debased Rabble, driven to lunacy by exposure to the warp-infected influences of forbidden rites and hellish law. Some of the indentured armies that fought during the Horus Heresy were murderous beyond reason. So this provenance may only be selected for an army with the traitor allegiance. An army with the provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rule in this army have their base cool characteristic modified by +1. So +1 to your cool, but your intelligence is down by 1. Oh, that's sad. The following item is added to the militia melee weapons list and is the Tainted Implements. And you get +1. And this is only to the militia officer weapons list. Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame. I thought it would be to everybody, but only to militia officers can have Tainted Implements, which is striking at the initiative of the character, same strength as the character, and damage 1. But it does have rending, which means any 6s to hit are going to also count as 6s to wound. So they're going to be auto wounding. effectively. And if you did have an ability that would also proc off a 6 to wound, that would also happen at the same time. So this one's like, fine. I don't know if I want to, number one, I don't know if I want to be a traitor, but I guess having +1 to my cool characteristics okay against statuses. But again, that Irregular's ability to have statuses but still score points kind of makes me less bothered about this. Our next provenance is Feral Warriors. Products of a brutal warlike culture, whether from the depths of the Underhive or barbaric clans of aggressive worlds, Feral Warriors have already been hardened by a life of violence and hold their skills honed in a constant battle for survival. Okay, an army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the Irregular special rule in this army gain impact weapon skill. So on a turn in which you charge, you're getting a +1/+2 weapon skill. Obviously, this combos with the impact leadership that you get from Abhuman Muster from the start. If a unit in this army containing any models with the Irregular special rule is within 8 inches of enemy units at the start of the controlling player's charge sub-phase, then you've got to try and make a charge. Player must make an intelligence check for that unit. If the check is failed, the controlling player must make a charge move for that unit. So got to be careful here. Although obviously you can pair this with gaining extra intelligence if you want to from something like the Cyber-augmetics. And then the following items are added to the militia armaments list and militia assault weapons list. So for 3 points, you can take paired close combat weapons, which just adds +1 to your attacks, basically. It's a normal weapon with no special rules, +1 attack. Don't forget, you can have a lot of dudes in this army. So sure, +3 points is going to add a lot to the cost of a unit, but that's going to be a lot of additional attacks that you can throw at enemy units. And sometimes your opponent just rolling 1s and failing armor saves, even on Terminators, is very funny. So yeah, Feral Warriors is a very cool one. Again, very thematic. You could either make, you can make this Beastmen, you can make this literally Wolfmen if you wanted. Like this, so I'm going to do a whole separate video where we mix and match these and come up with themes, but let me know what you've got in the chat below. Our next provenance is Gene Crafted. The Detachments troop have been subjected to the deliberate gene crafting to improve their physical attributes to superhuman levels, either by recent modification or owing to some ancient manipulation to their planetary stock during the dark age of technology. Such manipulations, however, are seldom as stable or as predictable as the Emperor's handiwork. So this is your opportunity to build Skaven or Escher models in I know those are very different to each other because of the weapon type that you're going to gain be able to use, because you're going to be able to use needle weapons. So you could do a lot with this, which I think is very fun. An army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the Irregular special rule and the infantry type in this army gain the light subtype, which means you get to +2 to your rush, I think. And if you have the heavy subtype, you in fact lose that, which is quite nice. You also gain access to needle weapons, which are pretty unique. You get a needle pistol, you get the, for the militia assault weapons list, you get the assault needler, which is very good for 5 points a dude, or dudette. And then you also get the needle rifle, and you also get a needle cannon. So if we take a moment to look at these, the pistol is 2 shots, but they've all got poisoned 3+ or poison 2+ in the example of the needle, which means any roll to wound above a 3 or a 2, depending on which one you're rolling, is going to automatically wound regardless of the toughness of the enemy unit, which is very good. So if you are going against a bunch of high toughness stuff, then you can poison a bunch of these. It's not going to work on vehicles. The assault needler is very interesting. It's 18-inch range. Now it's 2 shots each, and it's only strength 2, but you don't really care about that because you are going to try and poison everyone. All of these weapons also have pinning as well, so pinning 1. So that's also going to be pretty important. And the needle cannon is 24-inch range, 3 shots. And then it's also got heavy firepower as well. So you're going to get a bunch of shots from this at quite a range. So you can have fun with that. Overall, very cool. The ability to build an entire army that just poisons everything that you see is obviously amazing. The themes and the ideas, you know, doing poison bases, you know, potions, pots, everything you can come out of this. So brilliant. The next provenance is Imperial Provosts. Provosts enforce the dictates of the Lex Imperialis. throughout the Imperium, varying in form from dedicated cadres deposited from the Imperial Heartland, retired Imperialis auxiliary troopers directing local volunteers and even gang enforcers, deputized in service to the Imperial Tithe. Regardless of their origin, their brutality and dedication to protecting the Imperium's material assets makes Imperialis Provosts appealing foot soldiers when militia hosts are mustered, often replete with their own arsenal of paramilitary armaments. I thought I was doing pretty well then, and then got halfway through. Either way, it's a bunch of ex-soldiers rounding everyone up to go fight, which is pretty interesting. The thing that you gain for this provenance is all models with the irregular special rule and the infantry type gain the that do not have expendable on the as a trait. Special rule have their base cool characteristic increased by 1. That's going to help with statuses, but again, I don't really care about that because I can still hold objectives. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. The following item is added to the militia melee list, weapons list, militia melee weapons list, and militia officer weapon list, the shock maul. Okay, this has just got very, very exciting. So the Imperial Provosts are the police. I'm sorry that I missed that the first time around. They're the police. You can just play as the police, ACAB, but still the police. So you can be Judge Dredd if you want to, specifically because the following item is added to the militia melee weapons list, which is a shock maul for plus 3 points a model. Now, we haven't talked about the units yet, but in your infantry slot, you can have 20 dudes, and you can give them all shock mauls. They are only 4.5 points per model, these guys. So you'd be doubling the points cost of them. However, the shock maul is pretty spicy because it's plus 2 strength, and it has a flame 1. The flame special rule means that when you wound a unit with it, then they get -1 leadership for the phase. So you can have units of coppers smashing people with batons and then doing that. And also already like an Arvus lighter, thank you to Persia in the chat, an Arvus lighter that you've painted like a cop car or a Judge Dredd vehicle with a little flashing blue light. Combo this with a Triaris armored conveyor and make the armored conveyor like a big, big cop truck. The options are crazy. Okay, so then the following item is added to the militia weapons list, and it is Weber. You also get a Weber, sorry. And the Weber simply is a flame template that does 0 damage, but it causes a panic check. A pinning check. It causes a pinning check, which, you know, is pretty good as well. I mean, that one feels super thematic, obviously, like in a bunch of different ways. That you can get real crazy. You could do the Beastmen that are cops, right? So, like, there's a lot there. That's very fun. Industrial Levy. Adjusted, that's the next provenance. Adjusted to a life of constant hazards, operating under intense pressure and navigating perilous terrain. Those militia drawn from the Imperium's industrial worlds have a reputation for hardness among their exertus imperialis overseers, no doubt reinforced by their propensity for adapting industrial tools as brutal weapons of war. And on with this provenance, all models with the irregular special rule in this army gain move through recover special rule, which is not super exciting, but you clearly are trying to do a Gene Stealer Cults army. The idea is, I guess, that that's going to help them ambush or sneak through stuff much easier. But you also gain access to a bunch of different weapons. You get the heavy industrial weapon, which is a melee weapon, which is +4 to your strength, which is pretty great for 8 points. That's for the militia assault weapons list. And you also added to the militia special weapons list, you add a mining laser and a seismic cannon. A mining laser is just 1 shot, but it's strength 9, AP4, damage 2. And then you've also got a seismic cannon, which is a template weapon, which is breaching 6+ and also has stun, and it's range strength 6. It's a template and it's damage 2, which is quite fun with breaching 6+. So both of those are not bad. They're genuinely okay. So you gain access to those, which is cool. You also gain access to a heavy mining laser and a heavy seismic cannon. So the heavy mining laser is range 9. It's 1 shot, strength 10, AP4 damage 2. And then the heavy seismic cannon is range strength 7, still AP4, but damage 2. And it's got breaching 5+ this turn and also has a stun of 1. So you've got a bunch of different weapons. These are obviously just if you wanted to use the Gene Stealer cult models in the Horus Heresy, you now can. It's wild, actually, if you take the moment to think about it. Already, we've described several whole armies you could build. You could do a militia versus militia match and never touch a Space Marine in your life. And you could be playing apocalyptic sci-fi future warfare for free, effectively. I mean, build and paint the models yourself, but you don't have to buy them, like 3D print them, whatever. Incredible stuff. The next one is very exciting. Kinfolk Helots. Kinfolk, typically found among the labor classes of afflicted worlds, such as sub-citizens on the cusp of accepted tolerance, levels for mutation, and genetic deviance, are often pressed into frontline fighting by desperate Imperial commanders in times of emergency. This is the Short Kings faction. Many warlords prize such troops for their hardy nature and innate skill with machines, and some have voluntarily taken to the battlefield to fulfill old oaths and to seek the prize of acceptance and authority under the banner for which they fight. An army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rule and the infantry type in this army have their base toughness characteristic modified by +1 and their base initiative and base movement characteristic modified by -1. You make them squats. You just make them squats. And there are like so many to choose from. You have the whole 40k range. You have all the Necromunda range. You can build. This is crazy. One Grenadier troop in each detachment in this army may be upgraded to be an Exo Riggers for +8 points per model. So it's quite expensive. All models in units which have been upgraded in this way have the heavy subtype. They have bulky 2, slow purposeful. They have an armor save characteristic of 3 up, and they have an invulnerable save of 6+. They have an intelligence characteristic of 7, and they have the Battlesmith 1 special rule, meaning you're going to be able to repair vehicles and automata and walkers. And if they have they only have the Battlesmith 1 special rule, though, if they have the Sergeant subtype, so one of the models in the unit. And they may each exchange their militia rifle for 1 heavy industrial weapon for 8 points per model, or 1 pair of industrial weapons for 10 points. These are melee weapons. So a pair of industrial weapons is initiative modifier down by 1. You get +1 attack, you get +3 strength, you're AP 4, and you've got armor breaker 6+. And the industrial heavy weapon is still -2 to initiative. It's +4 strength, it's AP 4, and it's armor breaker 5+. Now, this is very cool. And again, it's just squats with great weapons. It's dwarfs in space. I mean, we've got ratmen in space, dwarfs in space. I have no idea why this must be in the most played faction forever. This isn't a game. Anyway, it's really good. I'm very excited. Our next provenance is called the Legacy of the Great Crusade. Some militia units are descended from the remnants of old Imperialis auxiliary regiments long since settled on one of their conquests. Reminds me of one of the Roman legions that ended up basically in China, which is pretty fun. While the original soldiery of such regiments have long since died or grown too old to fight, they have passed on their traditions and skills to their old life to new generations, allowing them to form the stern backbone of their planet's defenders. What's cool about this is any models with the irregular special rule in this army which don't have the expendable special rule gain +1 to their ballistic skill characteristic. This is obviously very good because this is a lot of models that get basically +1 to hit. So you could bring down a lot of firepower. In addition, the following item is added to the militia armaments list, which is a las rifle for +1 point. Per model. That's also very solid because a las rifle is range 30 inches. It's 1 shot unless you haven't moved, in which case it's going to be 2 shots. It's range strength 3. It's AP 6. It's AP 6 and it's damage 1. So you can just flood the board with shooting, which is crazy good. So you can just keep shooting. Yeah, like you could do like a Rambo style army with this. You could do some really cool stuff with this. Again, very, very fun. Very, very cool. Also, you could obviously combo this with like the Volkites that you could take. So you could have like the Legacy of the Great Crusade and also the armaments from like the Dark Age or whatever, and like combo them together. So you've got like loads of Volkites, basically +1 to hit. That's super cool. Our next one is the Ogryn Conscripts. Some worlds are populated by indentured hordes of stable Abhuman strain known as Ogryns, with very few inhabitants available to make up arms in their home's defense. We actually have one of those locally. It's called Derby. Used as cheap and reliable labor across the galaxy, these creatures also make formidable, if simple, soldiers, and as such, were quickly put to use on both sides of the Horus Heresy as shock troops. Okay, an army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models in an Ogryn brute troop unit in this army lose the heedless special rule, which means you can contest objectives. If you have heedless, you wouldn't be able to. While their unit includes at least one model with the Instill Order special rule, those are found on most of our command models. We'll cover those later. But the Instill Order special rule is a special rule that we'll find on some of our leader characters, basically. Every model with an assault shield in an Ogryn brute troop unit in this army can have its assault shield exchanged for a boarding shield for +2 points per model. So that's going to take us from having our variable invulnerable save of a 6-up invuln up to a 5-up invuln against volley attacks or Overwatch reactions, just to a straight-up 5-up invulnerable save, which is great. We still get the shield trait, so we can do the +1 toughness as a reaction that we need to make. If any unit shoots at us, and they also get the heavy subtype, so we only make little step-ups in the charge subphase, but we are +1 cool, which is nice. We love that. That's pretty nice. Also can't do rushes. So this feels like a bit of a no-brainer, and I think, we haven't looked at them yet, that we're going to get some detachments, which lets us take lots and lots of Ogryns. So if you wanted to, like if you got the Ogre kit from, Age of Sigmar, or there are some other sculpts out there, 3D print a bunch, you could build an Ogryn army. An Ogryn army is amazingly cool. Our next provenance is the Survivors of the Dark Age. The Force has its origins on a world which survived with many of the wonder of the Dark Age of technology intact, and its forces are equipped with vehicles that are potent, if idiosyncratic in origin. Thank you for complimenting me on saying idiosyncratic. An army with this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with a vehicle type and the Imperialist Militia trait in this army have auto repair 5+, meaning at the end of your turn, you're going to be able to potentially remove a status or get a whole point back on a 5-up. And you can do that on each vehicle, which is pretty decent. I suppose if you wanted to take a bunch of vehicles for this army, then that's a cool thing that you can do. And Rhino and Termite units from the Legion Astartes army list may be selected to fill transport organization slots in the Imperialist Militia detachments in this army, and Land Raider carrier units from the Legion Astartes army list may be selected to fill heavy transport force organization slots in the Imperialist Militia. Any models in these units replace the Legion Astartes trait with Imperial Militia, and they gain the 3rd line special rule. So just to remind ourselves, any glancing hits are going to be penetrating hits. And we reduce our ballistic skill down by 1. So you want to take a bunch of different transports. You also want them to be a bit more survivable. Survivors of the Dark Age is the one for you. Our next provenance is Tainted Flesh. Amongst the strangest and most terrible of the bizarre warriors fielded by militia regiments were those warriors twisted by exposure to terrible poisons, mutagens, or even influences of the warp. Interestingly, also Derby. Such regiments formed a parade of horrors unguessed at by sane minds, terrifying to friend and foe alike. This provenance may only be selected for an army with a traitor allegiance. An army with the provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rule in this army gain the Flame 1 and also Impact Initiative special rules. This is quite interesting. So it means any damage done with the weapons means it's a reduction of your leadership for that phase down by 1. So sending in multiple units to make the leadership check down by 1 is interesting if they lose combat. Impact initiative, so your initiative is up now on the charge. So if we wanted to, we could obviously mix this with Abhuman from the one at the start. I know this has been going on a while, but we can combo those. But definitely another video we'll do where we talk about the combos, which will be very fun. But mix those together. Now you've got a bunch of potential beastmen with flaming axes. Very cool. All getting out of all getting out of a vehicle. Insane stuff. And each rogue psyker model in this army may have 2 psychic disciplines selected for it from the options available on its profile instead. Very fun, very cool. You can mix and match this with a bunch of different things. Absolutely awesome. I've just realized you could have police with flame batons hitting stuff. This is unending combos. Voidborn. Battlefield deployment by means of gravshoot or retrojets are not uncommon among specialized elements of the Imperialist Auxilia, but such equipment is only seen in the militia's possession, where such hosts are drawn from societies well acquainted with similar technology. Whether these are gravitic gliders from some mountainous world or void maneuvering packs of spacebound cultures, these militia so equipped for those militia so equipped prove far more unpredictable than most of their ilk. An army of this provenance gains the following benefits. All models with the irregular special rule, but not any version of bulky or expendable, gain the Infiltrate 18 special rule, which means you can deploy 18 inches away from the your opponent at the start of the game. You don't have to deploy in your deployment zone. In addition, any reconnaissance troop or command troop unit in this army may be upgraded to a Void Jumper for +3 points per model. All models that have Void Jumper are upgraded. They have the Anti-Grav subtype, meaning you can fly over stuff, have the Bulky 2 for transport, and a Deep Strike, which you can put them in reserve and Deep Strike them down, or Firestorm special rule, which is a bunch of extra shooting and better shooting as well. And they set their base move characteristic to 10, which is really fast. Also, the following items are added to the militia armaments list and militia assault weapons list. You get 2 militia pistols, 2 las pistols for this. So this is fun. As people in the chat are saying, this is Halo ODST, or as we all know, orbital drop shock tubes, obviously. So yeah, you get the opportunity to like drop a bunch of dudes down. Again, this is a load of kit bashing. There's lots and lots of the 40k stuff to choose from. Those guys, what are they called? I can't remember right now. But you get those. You can take those. Loads of guys to choose from, which is very, very cool. The next one is Warrior Elite. The detachment troops are trained to a high standard and possess discipline worthy of a regular Imperial Army unit. An army with the Provenance gains the following benefit. All models with a regular special rule in this army have base leadership characteristic by +1 to a maximum of 9. And any model in this army that has a militia vexilla exchange for 1 auxilia vexilla, which is from the Libra auxilia. And this means that your unit will only panic at 50% of the models lost, versus normally 25% in the shooting phase. So this is like just a general upgrade. You can just be like, my guys are a little bit more elite, a +1. It's not quite as thematic as some of the others we've got, but they can't all be bangers, right? It's fine. Our last one that has been a roller coaster thrill ride is the Unending Horde. Some militia forces descend upon their enemy a screaming mass intent only on the destruction of the foe, no matter how many lives are spent in the attempt. Such forces are found only in the most insular or rabidly isolationist worlds of the Imperium. Though, during the Horus Heresy, many units sworn to the traitor War Master would adopt such tactics, some by choice, others less so. Okay. So an army with this provenance gains the following benefit. All models in infantry troop and levy troop units, which are your troop units, in this army gain the Endless Horde 4+ special rule. What this basically means is when a unit is completely wiped out, you roll a dice, and if you roll a 4 up, then you put the same unit with all of the upgrades and everything that you've normally taken, and it goes into reserve, and you can bring it on via the reserve special rule. If you have a character in the unit, that unit is not their character is not also going to come back, so it's just the unit at full strength, which is amazing. So you and your friend can have like an insane kind of like what happens if an Endless Horde just keep attacking me, like game where you build a defensive situation, like some battlements, and they just keep rolling glads at you until it goes. It's very cool. Anyway, every model in a command troop or infantry troop unit in this army can have the expendable 1 special rule selected for it for +1 as well. So it's also going to give out less points. Also, you can mix and match this if you want with like, yeah, your Beastmen list that we talked about from earlier, or your poisoned horde shooting bricks, and just bring them back, especially the poison ones, because it's going to make them more expensive. You can do some really fun and interesting stuff with this, as well as with everything else. So just a moment to just kind of like jump off from here, because we're about to look at the new detachments. I'm blown away. Number one, by the fact that this is free. I've, recording this for you, this is like a 50-minute video so far, but I've actually been recording it for over 2 hours. It's been fascinating. There's so many combos. I already want to do a bunch of Ogryns in a Necromunda or several Necromunda trucks and spray paint graffiti on the side of it with no Yumis allowed or whatever it might be. But squats with fire attacks is Chaos Dwarves. We've got Ratmen and Poison Horde blocks. And I honestly don't know how this isn't easily the most lauded piece of text that, like, people are banging on about. This is so exciting. Anyone that's not being incredibly excited about this literally just doesn't want to have fun playing a game. This is crazy fun. All right, let's go look at the rest of it. So now we've decided which two of our special rules we're going to throw together to build one of our literally million combinations. Well, it's not a million, but a lot of combinations of different armies. You also gain access to lots of different detachments. If this is your first experience of the Horus Heresy, and for some reason you're 50 minutes in, I do have a list building video on how you will build your lists. But just to quickly break it down, if we go look again at the section here, the contents, you can see that all of the units are broken out in different sections. Elites, as an example, with Grenadier troops. Heavy Assault have got the Ogryn Brute troops in. So you can see these here. So these are represented by symbols. And here, as an example, there is 8 elite symbols, meaning I can take 8 elite units in this Apex detachment. There are there's 2 or 3 types of detachments that you can take over your main detachment, which is called the Crusade detachment. If you take a high command, it's going to unlock 1 Apex detachment you're allowed in your army. So you're only allowed the 1. So all of these Apex detachments you're going to take 1 of, but you also can have multiple additional auxiliary detachments. So that's worth noting. So you're going to be only able to have 1 of these, which is fine because I feel like each one of these themes heavily into the combo of abilities provenances that we talked about earlier. So the first Apex detachment is the Grenadier Muster. And here you can see, because the only thing that is in the elite slot for the Imperialis Militia are Grenadier troops, this means you can have up to 8 Grenadier troops. But as we know, and we talked about earlier, there's loads of different upgrades you can do to those Grenadier troops for the different provenances. So there we go. The next one, the Ogryn Auxilia, is another Apex detachment. All of these slots need to be filled by Ogryns. Heavy Assault slots in this detachment can only be used by Ogryn Brute troop units, but that's a lot of Ogryns. I think Ogryns you can have up to 10. I think that's right. That's 80 Ogryns. Great. Sign me up. The infantry cohort, it just allows you to have a lot, which is the Apex detachment, allows you to have a lot of dudes, like a lot of dudes. So if you wanted to run the Endless Horde, or you can just have so many dudes, it's grim. The artillery division, an Apex detachment, allows you to have a lot of support units. Support slots in this detachment may not be used to select militia Medicae units. So if we take a look at support, this means we've got a fire support troop, a rapier troop, which is like a gun emplacement, a field gun battery, and a heavy ordnance battery, which is very, very exciting. I love to see that. So that's those Apex detachments. Now we have some more, where we have the Cavalry Wing Apex detachment. Recon slots in this detachment may only be used to select cavalry troop units. Again, this is 8. So this is 8 cavalry units. One of the things I will say is we didn't see necessarily a lot of upgrades for our cavalry in the provenances that we looked at earlier. But as long as they've got the right special rules, then they can get some upgrades. The last Apex detachment is the Armored Phalanx, which is just, it looks like it's a Lord of War. So this different vehicle type that you can see here is a bigger tank than you would normally have. It's called a Lord of War. And then it's 7 armored units. So just taking a look at our options, Lord of War is a militia Baneblade, and then the armor is the Leman Russ tank and the Malkador heavy tank. So that's pretty spicy. So that's what those are. None of these are heavy transports. These are all armored choices. So then we do have some auxiliary detachments. The 2 auxiliary detachments we have, the first one is a Storm Cadre, and this gives you access to 2 Grenadier units. That's what these 2 symbols are here. Well, they're elite units, but the only elites you have are Grenadiers. And then the Oversight Delegation is an auxiliary detachment, which gives you access to a command unit, and then it allows you to take 4 more support units, which support slots in this detachment may only be used to select militia Medicae units, and they are great for helping you deal with statuses or removing statuses from your troops. So that might be a sensible choice if you want to reduce a lot of statuses out of your army. The last auxiliary detachment is the Demonic Manifestation detachment. When a Rogue Psyker unit is selected to fill a command force organization slot, then the player may choose to add one Demonic Manifestation auxiliary detachment to the army instead of the options available. And this gives you access to 3 heavy assault choices from the Demons of the Ruinstorm army list, but currently that is not out and not available. So this is something that's going to pop up later. If it's anything like this, I'm really excited about it. Anyway, I like these because these are just very on the nose. They're just like, you might want to run a lot of cavalry. What if we let you run 8 units of cavalry? But you might want to run a lot of Ogryns. What if we let you run 8 units of Ogryns? That's great. And then everything in between. So now we're going to look at the different units that you can take. And the first one, and most obvious one to start with, is the Force Commander. Now, the Force Commander is 70 points, nice and cheap, and already his base starts out with a 3-up save and a 5-up invulnerable save, which we're not mad at all. That's pretty decent and very survivable. Now, they're humans, ultimately, and they're not even the best humans. So strength and toughness 3, weapon skill 4, same as your standard regular Space Marine. So he's going to have a tough time in any challenges or fights. So you can do a challenge. You can give them a Paragon Blade. There are a bunch of different weapons that you could take. I think it would bore us all if we went through everything. Power Fist, Power Weapon, Chernobyl Blade, Plasma Pistol, Hand Flamer. And it really depends what you're also taking as well. Like, are you going to put a Power Fist on like a Beastman, a Squat, a Copper? What are you building really this character to be? What's really nice is the Force Commander can be both Force Commander and a mounted Force Commander. So if you did want to go all cavalry, this gives you an opportunity to have a leader that does that as well. It's got pretty high leadership 9. Cool value is okay of an 8, and then willpower 7 and intelligence is 7. So both of those are okay, and initiative actually value of 3 for combat, fine. Like, his job is not to be a frontline fighter. Like, he's going to maybe fight some Marines, maybe. Maybe not. You can also exchange some weapons, like the Chernobyl Blade can be changed for a Militia Lance if you do decide to go for the Mounted Force Commander. Like I said, they are infantry or cavalry, and they do have the command, so they can do duels. The important part, though, is this character has the Planetary Overlord. So that's going to allow you to take 2 of the different army selection abilities for your army to like kit bash it, the provenances, and make it exactly how you build. So you're just going to need to take one of these. What's really fun, though, is designing the army that you're going to build and then building the Force Commander that you want, right? And there are so many available. You can be very fun. And there's also just some great kits, even just for regular guard from 40k. So very cool. Nice and cheap. You can build them to be more survivable, make them more fighty. That's fine. So after the high command, you now can take command units. And as you may have noticed, you can put a lot of units on the board in this army. So actually, you might have a problem with fitting enough like commanders in to improve the quality of your troops. But thankfully, the Discipline Master cadre has got you covered. So this is 30 points for 1 Discipline Master, but you may include up to 5 additional Militia Discipline Masters for 30 points per model. You can also decide to have all of those, if you want to, be mounted Discipline Masters for plus 10 points per model. So it's going to be 40 points, or it's going to be 40 points per mounted one if you want to. Simple and easy. All right, so again, not super strong unless you take all of the upgrades. We talked about this earlier, but being able to get like maybe +1 strength on the charge, stuff like that. Abhuman of Feral Provinces are going to give you a bunch of upgrades to make these much stronger, better weapon skill as well. So you potentially could be pretty good in a fight. Your ballistic skill 3, so you're not super good at shooting. You're only hitting on 4s. You've got 2 wounds each, and you only have a 5-up base armor save and a 5-up invuln save. So you're not surviving tons, which is okay because you're so cheap. So who cares, right? The important factor here is that you have high leadership for this army of leadership 8, and a high core value of 8 also for this army. Those are the important parts. For list writing, an important part for this is that 1 model in this unit may have the Officer of the Line 3 special rule for selected for it, which means you can take 3 auxiliary detachments for this commander in addition. So you're going to be able to have a lot of units on the board. Fine. And lots of different types of detachments as well, which is also okay as well. They've got a couple of special... Obviously, you can give them different war gear options. Tell me your favorite loadout in the comments below. But for special rules, you have among the ranks, instill order, and irregulars, which obviously means you get all of the bonuses. So among the ranks in instill order are, among the ranks, models of special rule are deployed and operate individually. So while you would buy all 5 at this point, and it would only take up 1 slot, you could have all 5 or 6, whichever one it is, and deploy them individually, which means you could deploy them each in individual units. So you could have like a cavalry master inside each cavalry unit, or a general master dude inside, a commissar inside each infantry block, improving their stats. The reason you would do that, to be clear, is because you want to improve their stats, specifically their cool, which is going to help them ignore statuses, their willpower, which is going to help them ignore psychic attacks, and leadership, which will help them ignore panic checks and a bunch of other stuff. So that's the reason that you're going to take them. They also have another bonus called Instill Order, where models with this special rule can inflict wounds on their unit in order to remove a tactical status in the start phase. This is good because while you can still score objectives, removing statuses is also a bonus, because it means you can make reactions, it means you can move a bunch of different stuff. So like that's also nice as well. So ultimately, I think this is great. These are good. Yeah, and also great opportunity for kit bashing, great opportunity for modeling, great opportunity for, can you just imagine like 6 discipline masters that you've got in like a squat force or a cop force or a rat force or a poisoned Escher force or a Skaven force. So many opportunities here. But that's what you're going to use them for. And you're just going to take multiples of them. They're not very expensive. You can give them a bunch of different equipment, obviously, to make them maybe even okay and a little bit fighty, which is nice. Our next command slot is the command troop. This gives us 1 militia lieutenant and up to 4 bodyguards for 70 points. And then we can include 5 additional bodyguards at plus 10 points per one. And if we want to, we can change our regular bodyguards for a grenadier bodyguard unit. So the unit itself is, now we're going to get into just human stats. And human stats are rubbish. They're way worse than Space Marines, right? Which the game is like coded off. So strength and toughness 3, their weapon skill and ballistic skill 3. They do have 2 attacks each, and their general stats are pretty low, with the militia lieutenant having leadership 7, cool 7, and intelligence is actually down to 5, but that's fine. Willpower down to 6. They don't have an invulnerable save at all, so it's just 4 up armor saves, 5 up armor saves. The important reason you would take this is for Officer of the Line 3. So another opportunity to take more detachments and unlock more. Now, obviously, there's a lot of potential upgrades that you can give these, but it really depends on which one of the earlier army special rules you're selecting and what you might take this as. But also, I don't really know if this unit is exactly like hyper specialized. It doesn't have a good ballistic skill or weapon skill or attack profile that makes me think that like I could build this as a combat unit or a shooting unit. So I'm only taking this for Officer of the Line, which is what it does, which is fine. It's worth pointing out for the last unit and this unit, you can also take a standard as well, which is going to give you +1 combat resolution. And while that's not anything overly strong to sing about, it looks awesome on the tabletop. So I just wanted to point that out because that's very cool. So the mounted command troop is it's exactly the same as the command troop we just talked about, apart from they're on horses. They do also gain Firestorm as well, which is a pretty nice additional rule to add in, which is going to give you some extra shooting. It's quite nice. You have frag grenades, you have a militia pistol. I think everyone has militia lances you can take, which is pretty nice. They move 12 inches. So this is a very fast unit. They do have 2 wounds each. That's worth talking about as well. 2 wounds each is pretty nice. I like that a lot. They have the irregulars special rule. Don't forget, one of the faction abilities that you could take is Eternal Warrior. I can't remember if that was Eternal Warrior and... that was Irregulars as a special rule and also Infantry. But if that's true, then that means damage to weapons are only going to do 1 damage to these, meaning they're going to need to fire twice as many damage to weapons at 2 wounds. That's pretty good. Like, 1 of these and 4 lancers, only 85 points, and each additional lancer is 12 points each. Okay, apparently it needs to be infantry 2 as well. Okay, so no, that's not... Our hopes are gone of Eternal Warrior mounted command troops. But that's okay. But this is, like I said, effectively what you are taking this is the command troop before. You're taking it for officer of the line, but you could probably build these out to be pretty fighty as well, which I think is very cool. And they're also very, very fast. Our next unit, very cool. It's a Rogue Psyker. Now, you're going to be able to take a Rogue Psyker in a traitor army. Now, the Rogue Psyker is the Rogue Psyker plus 9 Militia Wardens. So that's what you've got at 60 points and may include 9 additional Militia Wardens at plus 6 points per model. Now, obviously, a Psyker in your army is a great force multiplier. Okay, that's really important. And taking those 9 Militia Wardens is, as been pointed out in the chat, very characterful. Having a Psyker escorted by Wardens ready to execute him in case he goes too squirrely. His willpower is 9 on the Rogue Psyker. So that's the characteristic you're going to be using to test against your psychic powers. So Psychic Powers is a different video that I'm making soon, or I've already made it. I think I've recorded it, but I haven't edited it and uploaded it. So you get to choose different psychic disciplines. That's the important part. You get Biomancy, Pyromancy, Telekinesis, Divination, Telepathy, and Anathema. I personally really like Biomancy, and the one I'll talk about for now, because you can give +2 strength to a unit, which is pretty fun, especially if you're having some rampaging beastmen that you're charging at some enemies and stuff. That's pretty cool. I think that's very, very fun. It's also a support unit, which means it's only ever going to be able to score 1 for holding an objective. But it's also got Fear 1 special rule, which is an amazing rule. It means any test your opponent makes, well, it's basically -1 leadership or -1 cool to any units within 12 inches. So any test it's going to make is going to make it an additional -1. So you're going to be able to apply statuses to units much easier thanks to the Rogue Psyker. It's very cool. And I would maybe even, there are some of the one of the psychic powers that you take gives you fear, and it's the one that I often think is the most sensible one to take because it's such a powerful ability. Ultimately, at this stage, we're already choosing lots of different potential like army builds, and then which Psyker we want to bring along with us is going to be important. And we might not play traitors, so we might not be taking the Rogue Psyker anyway. But obviously you can do some really powerful stuff with your psychic manifestations and what you're able to like apply and support units with, which is very cool. You can also take force weapons, so it can also be like a fun unit that you can use in combat as well, which I quite like. So that's very cool. It's worth noting that they have listed the Anathema discipline in here as well, which is cool. And as you are going to be a traitor with your Rogue Psyker, you do have the ability to use the Breach the Veil psychic power, which means that you're going to be able to bring from reserve 1 of your demon units that you took earlier. Again, we don't have the data sheets for the demons, but that is something you're going to be able to do in the future with this army, which is very sick. So your only elite unit is the Grenadier Troop, which we've talked a lot about because there's lots of different upgrades that you can potentially give them. 85 points, you get 9 Grenadiers and a Grenadier Sergeant, and you can have this unit be up to a size of 20, which is very good, 20 of these. So they do have frag grenades and crack grenades. They've also got a 4-up armor save, which is pretty decent. They've also got Vanguard 3. That's the important rule here, because that means that when they go and take an objective off an enemy unit, they're going to get 3 points if they're able to do that, which is quite nice. Although, you know, move 6, are they going to do that? We'll find out. There are so many different ways you can build these units. We're definitely going to do this in a more complete video because we literally need to decide which one of the sub-factions we're taking first before we work that out. And that's going to be true for most of these units. Okay. Also, you can take a Vexilla, which is going to give you +1 to your combat res. Also, you can take a Vox. The Vox is really important because you have a pretty low cool value of 6. So unless you put one of your characters in that we talked about earlier, then you're going to fail a lot of status checks. The Militia Vox is going to help you overcome that. You've got lots of different weapon options you can take. We could go about it on about it forever. We will do eventually. But frag and crack grenades, they're fine. Militia rifle, also fine as well. And they've got implacable advance. Now we're going to look at the heavy assault units. And I think one we're all very excited about is the Ogryn Brute Troop. So these are 3 Ogryns with an additional 10 Ogryns. Additional 7 Ogryns, taking you up to 10 potential Ogryns, 30 points extra for each Ogryn. If you have 5 or more Ogryns, then you can have an Ogryn boss for 10 points. So this is pretty good. That's going to put us about 305 points, 315 if we take the Ogryn the Ogryn boss, which obviously we're going to do. It's pretty nice. So, 3,000 point game. you can have 30 of these. It's going to take up 1,000 points of your army. Easy. They're pretty fast. They move 7 inches, which is pretty nice. Now, you'll notice that their war gear, they come equipped with a Ripper gun. So Ripper gun's an okay shooting weapon, but they're ballistic skill 2. So I'm going to say that we should change that out, and we'll talk about that in a minute. They're weapon skill 3, which is okay. Not too bad. But they are strength 5. We love that. They are toughness 5, which is great. They've got 4 wounds each. They're initiative 2. But they have 3 attacks each. Now, they do have impact A, which means if they've charged, they're going to get +1 to their attacks, which is pretty nice. They've got a high cool value if you've got the boss of 9, which is good for statuses. Their leadership's okay as well. Willpower's a bit low. Now, they've only got a 5-up save, but we're going to be able to improve that in a moment. Let's go and have a look. All right, any model in this unit may have its Ripper gun exchanged for a stub cannon or a power maul. We definitely want to take the power maul because it's +2 strength. That takes us up to strength 7, which we really like. That's 5 points a model. On our unit of 10, that's going to add an additional 50 points onto the unit. The Ogryn boss in this unit may have its Ripper gun exchanged for one of the following: a heavy bolter, heavy flamer, auto cannon, and a thunderhammer. Heavy flamer's not a bad shout because it's a template weapon, so you're going to be able to just drop that over a unit, which is good. You don't have to use your ballistic skill, which is pretty low, which is fine. Or a thunderhammer, which I think is a great choice. Have a big old thunderhammer. So it's very fun. So now I've got 9 dudes with power mauls and then 1 guy with a thunderhammer. And then any model in this unit which has had its Ripper gun exchange for a stub cannon, power maul, or thunderhammer may also have an assault shield for +3 points as well. So the assault shield is going to give us a 6-up invulnerable save, which we're pretty happy about. But don't forget, if we take the formation that lets us help Ogryns out, I think that gets upgraded to an assault shield, which gives us a 5-up invulnerable save, which is pretty good as well. Any model of this unit can have like a bayonet, and also the Ogryn Brute in this unit may have a Militia Vexella as well, which is okay for the combat res. So that we could have 10 Ogryns on the charge with 40 attacks, 36 of them, or it's actually 41 attacks. 36 of them is going to be with power mauls, and then another 5 attacks is going to be with a thunderhammer. That's a crazy profile for this unit. Really, really fun. Very cool. And obviously, I think it's going to be a very attractive thing for a lot of people to kit bash and build and put together. There's also like an opportunity. We talked about running the cop faction earlier, but there's these. You can run these as Ogryns. It doesn't have to just be actual Ogryns. If you're running the Beastmen, you could potentially, if you're running the Beastmen, you could easily use Minotaurs as your Ogryns as well. So there's a lot of opportunity. It's also worth pointing out that these are heedless. So heedless means you're not going to be able to go and grab objectives with this unit as well. Ultimately, these are very cool. They'll look very cool. They're chaosified as well. Very evocative unit. So our next unit is the Beastmaster Troop, and this has to be maybe the most interesting unit out of this roster. So you start out with 3 militia handlers that are 30 points each, and you can have 7 additional militia handlers for 8 points each per model. We'll talk about those for a moment. You have a cool value of 7, which is great for statuses, leadership 7. You only get 1 attack each. Your strength toughness is 3, and you've got a 5-up save. Okay. Weapon skill 3, and they all come with a militia pistol. Very simple. It's also a heedless unit, so not going to be able to grab objectives. Okay, so why does this get really crazy? Well, for each militia handler that you have, you can get a militia mastiff, a dog, a militia felidae, which I think is, I don't know, a slug. Who knows? A cat, a caiman, which is maybe a dinosaur, and a raptor, which is definitely a dinosaur. So you get a dog, a cat, a dinosaur, and then something else, like battle crocodiles, whatever it might be. And that's for each of the militia handlers. So you can have 10 militia handlers with 10 dogs, or 10 dinosaurs, or 10 geese, or 10 cats, or 10 bears. Or if you go dipping into your toes into Necromunda, you can have 10 slugs if you want to, whatever your heart desires, which is lizards, crocodiles, sump crocs. You can run the cops and have the dogs. Like so many options available to you here. Skaven, rats, bomb rats, whatever you like. And they've all got different profiles, which, like, I think the Mastiff stands out as being pretty good. 3 attacks with impact strength on the charge, taking it up to strength 5. Feels pretty good. It's initiative 3. It does cost you 10 points for the dog. Yep. The Cayman is 15 points. That is strength 5, though, with only 1 attack, which is quite interesting. There we go. But a crazy unit in a book of crazy stuff that you can do. And obviously you can theme this as much as you like. They do have heedless, so you're not going to be able to take objectives. A unit of 10 is going to be close to, what's that going to be? Like something like 100 points for the handlers, and then additional 100 points. So if you wanted 10 handlers, 10 dogs, it's going to cost you about 200 points. So you could like flood the board with these. You can make grimdark gnomes. Give me your suggestions in the comments below, because this is insane. I just want to paint you a picture for a moment, if I could, with the Beastmaster troops. Like, if you can imagine, like there's an objective on the board, you've painted up your Primarchs, it's beautiful. And then some Terminators of the First Company accompanying them in a Spartan with its own name and a machine spirit that drops them off on the objective. And they face off against me with my Beastmaster troop of 10 models and 10 vagina bats. It's not quite what we expected from the Horus Heresy. It's not exactly what we thought was the goal, but I'm very excited about it being a possibility on the tabletop in the future. Now we're on to the mainstay of your militia army list, the infantry troop. So your troop choice, or one of your 2 troop choices, actually. So you got 1 model, one sergeant, and 19 militia. 20 dudes for only 90 points. That's a lot. 10 units of these is only going to be 900 points. That's a third of your third of your army. So you're going to need a lot of dudes. Okay, so you got a 5 up armor save, and you're a human, so you strengthen toughness 3. So your survivability is okay. You do have the line special rule. So when it comes to scoring points on the board, which is how you win the game, these are very integral to the game. And because that means you're going to get a bonus point for holding an objective. So if an objective is worth 3 points, you're going to get 4 points for that objective for having this, which is good. That's good. Having multiples of these is also really nice as well, because your opponent is going to really struggle to like shoot all of them, apply statuses to all of them, and kill all of them before you can jump these onto objectives. So that is really good. And having played several games now, having line is really, really positive for gaining bonus points. And it's going to be a struggle to clear all of them. So as standard, you come with a militia rifle and you have frag grenades. Your ballistic skill 3, but we know that there's one of the special upgrades you can take where you get +1 to your ballistic skill. So if you want to, you can just be ballistic skill 4 and shoot like a Space Marine. You also we could move into being AdMech as well, and you can give them Laslocks, so you can have like a 30-inch range gun. If you decide not to and you just stick with the militia rifle is pretty simple. It's 24-inch range. It's 1 shot if you have moved, 2 shots if you haven't. Strength 3, no AP, damage 1. So hitting on 4s, you're wounding Marines on 5s, and you're just rolling a ton of dice and you're just flooding the board. Not too bad. You move 6 inches, you shoot, you got like a 30-inch effective range. Like I say, you can upgrade the shooting, you could upgrade loads of elements, you can upgrade the gun. You can also change what gun you have. You can have the carbine rifle or the shotgun. So we've already talked about the rifle. The shotgun is only 8-inch range, but it's strength 4, so you're going to be wounding Marines on 4s. It's damage 1. And the carbine is 18-inch range, with 1 shot, strength 3, and it's damage 1. I really don't know why you would take the carbine, to be honest. It doesn't seem to have any redeeming qualities at all. Oh, I guess it's an assault weapon, so you're going to be able to use that when you're charging. I guess that's the redeeming quality of it. Okay. So let's talk about upgrading our equipment. So if we want to, we can swap the militia rifle for a pistol. If we do that, we can then move all of our dudes into having close combat weapons. And we can have just a close combat weapon that's free, then we can have a chain sword, or we could have a chain axe, both of which have got their own positives and negatives. But of course, that would be really cool. And if we do decide we want to move all of these into a close combat role, I don't think that's a bad choice, especially when we know that we can increase our weapon skill, we can increase our strength, There's a bunch of bonuses. We could do biomancy if we were traitors. There's lots of things we could do to make this unit far more combat orientated, even if they're going to be hitting not great against Marines. And the standard Marine of the line is the thing you need to fight. They're going to be holding objectives. That's the thing you need to be constantly working out what you're going to go and punch. So that's there. Now, it's also worth pointing out that your stats are pretty low. Your cool value is pretty low. Your leadership's pretty low. So having some leaders in these troops would make them far more effective, which is pretty nice. You can also, if you want, give crack grenades to every model in this unit, which is pretty good. You can also take a Vexilla if you wanted to, and also you can also have a Vox. So both of these are going to help you. One of these is the Vox is going to help you with your statuses, although it's not anywhere near as good as a Nuncio Vox that you have for Space Marines. Instead, this lets you roll 2 dice when you're trying to get rid of your statuses in the subphase at the end. The status is subphase at the end of the turn, which is kind of okay for 10 points. I don't know, for 10 points, you most of the way to just getting another infantry troop. So just get another infantry troop. So these are very kit bashable, very translatable. You can change these up a lot as well. You can obviously give them Volkite weapons if we take them in a certain sub-faction. We can give them poison weapons, like infantry troops with the poison gun, the 2-shot assault poison gun would be crazy. That would be like a lot of poison that you're going to throw at your enemy. So that kind of gets around the strength problem. +1 to hit and poison, I think, would really make this quite a spicy shooting army, to be honest. So definitely something to think about there. But ultimately, they're going to score you points on objectives, and you can, build a bear, add all your different bonuses onto these. So they're pretty good, and they're super cheap for a lot of bodies. Next up, we have the Levy Troop unit. So this starts out with 20 Levy troops at 80 points, making them 4 points a model, and you can upgrade them to having 30 additional Levy troops at 5 points a model, making this unit be 230 points for 50 bodies on the board. And if you wanted, you could have a Levy Warden for additional 5 points. So they do have the irregular special rule, obviously. So now you're going to be able to take a bunch of the different upgrades. And they also have a militia rifle, but they're only ballistic skill 2. So they're just going to be hitting the side of a barn door, but you're going to be shooting a ton of shots. This obviously feels like the right choice if you want to go down the route of having the Unending Horde. You want to be able to take all of those, just keep putting a lot of these on the board. Also pretty good for bubble wrapping your vehicles, bubble wrapping your characters, bubble wrapping your mortars. This is a good opportunity to just make it so your opponent cannot kill enough stuff. And because of that, they have the expendable 3 special rule, which means if your opponent does end up killing this unit, they're going to lose 3 victory points for having killed it. Well, they're not going to lose 3 if they would have scored any bonus points. So you can put 50 of these on an objective, bubble wrapping one of your line units. So bubble wrapping your infantry troop. When your opponent's Vanguard unit kills them, then you are going to lose 3. Well, they're going to gain 3 less points than they would have gained. And also, your unit in the middle is still untouched, which is amazing. Yeah, that's basically all it's worth talking about with this unit. But maybe when we get around to do some list writing, we can really expand how we would build these. Next up, in the support role, we have the Militia Medicae. So 20 points for these. And don't forget, we do have the Apex detachment to take 4 more Medicae. So 20 points, 1 model. It's only got a wound, it's only got 5-up save. The important part is it has the Medic 5-up special rule. This means when you put it inside of a unit, every time you assign a wound or assign a damage to a unit that would kill it, then you'll roll a 5-up for each model exclusively once. That's important to point out. And then if they pass, you just basically ignore the wound. It's basically a damage mitigation test, right? But that's only as part of a reaction. Okay, so you must make a reaction to do so. That reaction is called Medic. So when I shoot at a unit or fight a unit, then... So it's only a shooting attack. So when you shoot at a unit, I'll be able to make a 5-up test. Feels like a pretty good 20-point upgrade to lots of your units, especially if you go down the route of having Like maybe if you go down like having expensive weapons on a unit, that feels like a good test. It's only a 20-point upgrade, so not too bad. Not too bad at all. Could be very interesting. On 50 dudes, it might work, but also why do you have 50 dudes? Like 50 dudes can just die, that's fine. So that's what the Medicaid does. A 5-up, kind of a 5-up feel no pain, a 5-up damage mitigation test, but only as part of reaction. Next up, as a support unit, you get the Fire Support Troop. So you get 3 fire teams and then 7 additional fire teams at 15 points a model. So if you wanted to have the 3, it's only going to cost you 50 points. The 7 additional, if you go all the way up to having all 7, is going to be an additional 115 to 165 points. Check my math on that to have these. But it's going to cost you more points. We'll talk about why in a moment. So you get a militia pistol and frag grenades. That's not important. They're bulky 3, so difficult to transport. 3 for each. They're going to take up 3 transport slots each. They've got irregulars, so you're going to be able to give you all the upgrades or whatever upgrades for your army they're going to take. Support unit 1, so they're only going to count for 1 for contesting an objective. They have slow purposeful, so they're not going to be able to chase units down if they get into combat and win the combat, which is pretty funny. They're heavy infantry. Now, the big deal for these guys is every model in this unit must have 1 item from the militia heavy weapons list selected for it, and every model in this unit must have the same item selected for it. Now, they are only ballistic skill 3. But we know that one of the special abilities that we can give to our army, we can get +1 to our ballistic skill. So they can be hit on 4s, the same as a Space Marine. They're not anywhere near as survivable as a Space Marine. Or they've got 2 wounds each. They're toughness 3. They got a 5-up save. What Games Workshop really, or specifically SDS really want you to use is they want you to use these like Cadian heavy weapons squads, or they want you to build the Krieg version, which are obviously very cool. So every model in this unit is going to be able to take 1, they're all going to be able to take the heavy weapons. And we've got a heavy stubber, a mortar, a multi-laser, heavy bolter, heavy flamer, missile launcher, auto cannons, and las cannons. First one we obviously will look at. Let's look at the las cannon. It's going to cost us 25 points per las cannon that we take. And it's going to be Strength 9, 1 shot, AP 2, damage 1, and it's got heavy damage. So it's going to be damage 2 if we don't move. It's also got armor bane as well. So obviously you could get that for pretty cheap. You don't have to have the full like 10 with las cannons. You know, you could have 5 with las cannons, which would run you like what would that cost you? It'd cost you like 125 points for the las cannons, and then it will cost you something like 80 to 100 points. And you could have loads and loads, which would obviously be really clever. And also you can get +1 to hit, which would be wild. For 20 points a model, you can have an auto cannon shooting 48-inch range, 2 shots each, strength 7, AP 4, damage 2, but it's going to have breaching 6+, and it's heavy firepower. It's also got breaching 6+, so any 6s to wound is going to be AP 2. And with heavy firepower, you're going to have 3 shots at strength 7. So you could just be like rinsing a ton of shots at the enemy, which is very, very fun, especially into other militia lists. Missile launcher maybe is the most versatile of the weapons that you could take. They've obviously all got 1 shot each, but you can choose between having a frag crack or a flak shot, which is great. They all do different things. You got Skyfire, you got strength 8 AP 3 from the crack, and the frag is a blast template, but it's only strength 4. So you know you've got a lot of options there. Then we've got the mortar. If they all decide to have mortars, you got 1 shot at 36 inches, strength 4, AP 5. It's a 3-inch blast template, though, and you could have 10 of them. It's insane. It does have barrage 1. It's also got stun, status effect stun 0. So they're going to have to also check for that as well. And I'm not going to go through the multi-laser and the twin heavy stubber and the heavy bolter. The heavy flamer is probably the dumbest one, to be honest. But, you know, it's a cheap unit until you add the weapons on, then it becomes expensive. But the fact that you can get +1 to hit for this army feels like they're going to do a lot. And there's an Apex detachment that lets you take 8 of this unit. So you can just have a crazy fire line that if I go first, I smash list, which is very funny. Very fun. If you can be bothered to build and paint it all, that's in there. And if you don't want to go that extreme, this will provide nice either anti-vehicle. It's probably what it provides the best, to be honest. I like good anti-vehicle, maybe good anti-Terminator sort of fire support, which is good at a pretty cheap cost. So next up, we've got another support unit, and it's similar. We have a Rapier Troop. So this is a gun emplacement again. You can have one Rapier crew for 40 points or 3 additional Rapier crews at plus 35 points per Rapier crew. Again, their ballistic skill is 3. But unlike the heavy support troop, you aren't going to be able to get +1 to hit on these because that is not going to benefit the Rapier carrier. You can see here that the irregular special rule only affects the militia gunner, and they don't actually shoot the Rapier carrier, which is kind of weird, I guess. Who knows? So you get 4 types of weapons that you can take on the Rapier carrier. As standard, it comes with a multi-laser array. For 5 additional points, you can take the Gravis Heavy Bolter Battery. For 25 points, you can have the Laser Destroyer, or you can have the Quad Launcher with Frag Shells. The Quad Launcher with Frag Shells is a 48-inch, 4-shot, strength 7, AP4, damage 2, with Barrage 0, Armor Bane, and Breaching 6+, which is quite an interesting little profile. Actually not that expensive for the Quad Launcher with Frag Shells. It's only 5 points additionally. So, okay, a lot of shots you can just dump on the board, which I think is fun. Our most expensive of the weapon options is the Laser Destroyer. I think it's the most expensive. Yes, it's 25 points each. So you get 2 shots at strength 10, AP 2, damage 2, and they are heavy D. So that means if you don't move, they're going to become damage 3, and they're also armor bane. Feels like a bit of a no-brainer. Does make these 65 points for one, and each one additionally is going to cost you 70 points. But that's a lot of shots you can do down range, which is pretty fun. Again, these are not super survivable, with only 5-up, 3-up saves, but they're going to be fine. And just to remind ourselves, Armor Bane means that any penetrating hits that we cause, any penetration hits that equal or exceed the armor value cause a penetrating hit. Any glancing hits actually cause a penetrating hit. So the weapon it comes equipped with as standard, the multi-laser, is 3 shots each at 36-inch range, strength 6, AP 6, damage 1, and suppressive 1. Now that's a pretty nice, cheap profile for trying to put suppressive onto enemy units. Not bad at all. 40 points to just keep putting suppressive on enemy units. I'd probably take that. The last weapon, it's pretty cheap as well. The Gravis Heavy Bolter Battery is 36 points, and it's 8 shots at strength 5. So it's going to be Wounded Marines on a 3, AP 4, damage 1, and it's suppressive 2, which is also a really nice stat, especially if you were running this in a traitor army and you had a psyker. So they're going to be putting fear 1 out there. So now it could be suppressive 3. That's pretty good for applying statuses to units, even if all you're trying to do is make it so they can't score objectives. Overall, these are pretty nice. They're fun to put on the board. I think the main problem you're going to have with this army is board space to put enough stuff down. The real question is are you going to be able to get these into a space where you're going to be able to shoot at enough stuff that they're worth taking? Our next support unit is another mortar gun emplacement style unit in the Field Gun Battery. 55 points to take one of these, or you can have an additional 4 at 50 points each, 5 of them for 555 points. They're toughness 4 with 3 wounds each, and they have got a 4-up armor save, so actually pretty survivable, really. They're bulky, 5+, so you can take up room in a transport. They're emplaced, which is a special rule that they have, where models with a special rule cannot make reactions, which would allow it to move. And in addition, if any unit is forced to fall back, then you remove the models as a casualty. So just be clear about that. They're also support units that are only going to count for 1 on an objective, and they are an infantry unit. So let's talk about what they come equipped with. Most importantly, they come with a Calliope rocket mortar. This weapon is 48-inch range. It's got 1 shot, strength 6. So it's going to be Wounded Marines on 2. It's pretty decent. AP 4, and it's a large 5-inch blast template with barrage and suppressive, which is pretty good. So you're going to be able to apply a status. That's really not too bad, a 5-inch blast template. Don't forget, if your opponent is playing really well, they're going to be spreading their models out. But you want to try and put as many different statuses on the enemy units as you can. They're going to fail a check at some point and then not be able to hold objectives. For 10 points more, though, we can equip a Thunderblast battle cannon, which is 1 shot, strength 6, AP 4, damage 1. This is a 3-inch blast template, which has got heavy on the AP, which means it's going to be AP 2 if you haven't moved. And it's got pinning 0, which this is a pretty nice, actually, anti-marine gun. Actually, 3-inch blast template, heavy AP, that's great. Strength 6, wounding on 2s, not bad. I think that's pretty nice. That's actually a pretty good one for not many more points. But for 15 points more per gun emplacement, you can have the heavy las cannon, which is 1 shot, strength 10, AP 2, damage 2, and it's also got ordnance damage and armor bane, meaning any glancing hits are going to be penetrating hits. So not too expensive, an additional 15 points on these. This is going to be 55 points. You are also going to be able to get +1 to hit on these as well. So definitely of the 3 kind of like heavy support choices, the Rapier Troop probably comes out the worst because you can't necessarily upgrade it. But the Field Gun Battery has got a lot of good choices. I like the Thunderblast Battle Cannon, and the Heavy Las Cannon is also decent as well. So yeah, all really good choices and actually pretty cheap. You can put a lot of these on the board. Next up, we have you thought we were done with artillery pieces. Wrong. Now we have the Heavy Ordnance Battery, which used to look like this, the big Earthshaker cannon from back in the day, which is very cool. So one of them is a gun carriage and 3 militia gunners for 85 points. If you'd like, you could have 5 additional militia gunners up to 6 points. And that's because how you assign damage to this, the heavy ordnance crew, the characteristics of different models of this special rule are used in different situations, and they're removed as casualties instead of making fallback moves. So you might want to buy the additional gunners so that you can, keep this going on for a little bit longer, because the gunners themselves are just regular humans with a 5-up save, but the gun itself is toughness 7 with 4 wounds and a 3-up armor save. Now this shoots at ballistic skill 3, and only the militia gunners have the irregular special rule, so you're not going to be able to give them +1 to hit. It comes as standard with the Earthshaker Cannon. The Earthshaker Cannon is a 240-inch, 1 shot, strength 5, AP 4, damage 2, 5-inch blast weapon with breaching 6+, and also pinning, which is not too bad. We could change up, in fact, to having a siege mortar instead if we like, which is only 48-inch range, 1 shot. It's a large 5-inch blast template that's strength 4, AP 4, but damage 3 with breaching 6+, pinning and barrage. So maybe to take some pot shots at some Terminators. For 15 points more, you could take a Medusa mortar, which is 36-inch range, 1 shot, strength 5, AP 4, damage 2. Again, this is a 5-inch blast template, but this has got breaching 5+, and pinning 2+. So this definitely feels like the one that you'll take to try and put statuses again on the enemy army. And it does feel like something the militia can do at long range as you're running forward onto objectives, maybe with wild-eyed beastmen or doughty dwarfs. You could just dump shots on your opponent until they're just blind, which is a pretty cool tactic. For an additional 5 points, you can take a siege cannon, which is 48-inch range, 1 shot, strength 9, AP 4, damage 4, and it's a 3-inch blast template with stun. Again, AP 4 is not quite enough, but damage 4 is real spicy, and maybe I take a couple of pot shots to try and get that damage through. Strength 9, I could just land that on some vehicles, to be honest, and start doing damage 4 is really good. For free, you can upgrade to a heavy rocket bombard, which is a 7-inch blast template with suppressive 2. That's 1 shot, strength 6, AP 4, damage 1. That's right. If you're playing this army for only 85 points, you can drop 1 million. Oh, apparently this might be a typo, and this is meant to say heavy quad launcher. Okay. Very interesting. Apparently this might be a typo and you can't take the heavy rocket bombard. So don't do that. Either way, you've got a bunch of different weapons you can just dump on the enemy and do a ton of different statuses. I think my favorite is probably the siege cannon. I think the siege cannon is legit, pretty cheap for that. So that's what I would take. Now, you're pretty lucky in the militia list for your Walker detachment, because you have the Sentinel Patrol, which for 40 points is 1 Scout Sentinel, and you can have 4 additional Scout Sentinels at 35 points each for a unit of 5. If you want to, all of those Scout Sentinels can be upgraded to be Armored Sentinels for an additional 10 points each. So you can have 5 Armored Sentinels if you want, which is pretty nice. Now, the difference is the Scout Sentinels are a little bit faster in that they're movement 10. But the Armored Sentinel obviously has got a better toughness value, although is not more heavily armored, which is quite funny. They're both a 3-up save. The Armored Sentinel is +1 to the cool factor, so he's not going to take as many statuses. But you've got an additional wound on the Armor Sentinel as well. So this feels like a very good unit to take the role of like bikes. And what bikes do for Space Marines, equip them with multi-melters and go along flanks and do some shooting. That's very fun. And you get a bunch of different options on what you're able to equip on these. It starts out with 0 war gear, so it is going to cost you more points. You have a multi-laser, heavy flamer, auto cannons, missile launchers, las cannons. Las cannons are 25 points. The missile launch is 15. Auto cannons 20. The multi-melter is 25. I think multi-melter is a pretty good shout. A plasma cannon is 20. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to give these guys +1 to hit, which is obviously the conversation I keep having, because that's obviously going to be pretty important for your shooting units, which is what this is. Also, it's worth noting that your Scout Sentinels are going to get outflank if they get the opportunity to use that, if you go for the Scout Sentinels as well. I mean, this is a cheap flanking unit that's going to not be able to get in the middle of like a fight, because you definitely don't want to be in the middle of a fight with this unit. Which is good. Also gives you a bit of verticality to the armor. Yeah, so you can't get +1 to hit on these. So intrinsically, these are maybe a worse option as a shooting gun platform. But they're fast, so they can move up the board, which is pretty okay. Maybe even just charge them into an enemy unit to lock them in. Because, toughness 6 with a 3-up armor save, that's going to be really tough for your opponent to deal with. Now we're into transports, and the Militia Arvas Lighter, which is a tiny little plane, is only 65 points. In war gear, it doesn't even have a gun. In order for you to have a rear-mounted gun, you need to pay an additional 10 points for a multi-laser, which is not good. It's also important to note that this has got the 3rd line special rule, so any glancing hits are also going to remove a hull point. Speaking of which, this has only got 4 hull points, and is got a very low armor value of armor 11 on everything. But it's a flying transport, so it's going to start off the board, and it's got a transport capacity of 12. It's very cute. Arguably, with the way rules work in Horus Heresy 3.0, you don't actually even technically need the model, because it spends almost 99% of its life off board. But either way, you're going to be able to drop 12 models on the board, or 3 Ogryns. Could I interest you in 3 Ogryns jumping out of a police helicopter that you've flown in, which is very cool. That's what this is what this unit does. It's got a flare launchers as a special war gear. Flare launchers provide an invulnerable save against intercept reactions. Now, it would be incredible if your Arvas Lighter got intercepted, because it would require no, actually, you could do intercept reactions without a plane, sorry. So yeah, that's actually pretty good. You do want that. A 5-up invuln is great. I was thinking of the reaction where you have a plane of your own that intercepts stuff, but no one's going to take it because people are not going to take planes. I don't think, anyway. But either way, this is cute. It's very fun. Is it functional? Not really. Is it cool? Absolutely. Okay, I'm starting the next review. We're just looking at the image. This is the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. Imagine putting 3 Ogryns or 4 Ogryns inside this bad boy. Okay? Incredible stuff. Okay, so this is probably the thing I'm most excited about. You can run the Militia Utility Hauler. This is a vehicle. It's only going to cost you 55 points, and you can upgrade it to 85 points if you run an armored hauler. Incredible stuff. So the cargo hauler moves 12. The armored hauler only moves 10. The transport capacity for these, because they're transports, 22 if you are running the cargo hauler, and 20 if you're running the armored hauler. The armored hauler gets, obviously, slightly better front and side armor and 1 more hull point. But you lose 2 transport capacity, which I think is kind of okay. Okay, if you want to, you can have weapons on these. This cargo hauler may have one item from the militia pinter weapons selected for it, and the armored hauler may have up to 3 items from the militia pinter weapons selected for it, which is incredibly cool. And the model may also have a hunter killer missile and also a dozer bleed, which is going to help it with dangerous terrain. So that's all this does. But when I say all this does, this is incredibly evocative. If this isn't being full with Ogryns, it could be full of Beastmen or Squats or whatever you want, like for the variety of different different builds that we were talking about in another video, which we'll do in the future, like the different combos, the Skaven that we talked about, like Chaos Dwarves, like whatever. Like, and it's very cheap. It's very, very cheap. Like not necessarily to buy or purchase, but you can take a lot of these and it's incredibly cool. Or you could just put like 10 dudes with worms inside. It's so weird. Like 5 dudes with dogs. So if that transport wasn't enough, more of a rickety truck, you can go for a more heavily armored truck in the militia industrial rig, which is 1 mining rig, or you can change that for an explorator rig. So those 2 different weapons, 2 different vehicles are these ones available, I think from Necromunda. This is the kind of goal. So this would be your mining rig, and then if you exchange to the explorator, you'd be going into this kind of squat vehicle. So that's give you some sort of concept of what they're going for, I think. So 65 points for the mining rig or 105 points for the explorator rig. They both got a transport capacity of 12. The explorator rig is more heavily armored, an additional hull point, but is slower. And the mining rig moves 10 inches, but they both transport the same. The mining rig is a light transport, as is the explorator rig, but the explorator rig has auto repair 5+, so it's going to be able to either get hull points back, or it's going to be able to, get rid of a status at the end of your turn in the status subphase. Now, the mining rig only has a turret-mounted twin heavy flamer, which is pretty fun. The explorator rig has a twin heavy stubber, a mounted heavy flamer, dozer blades, and searchlights. But the mining rig can have a Gravis autocannon, seismic cannon, or a heavy mining laser if you want to, and add that on as well. And you can take pinter weapons in addition. So this is just a different type of transport, not as more heavily armored, slightly better guns that you're going to be able to take as well, or just rule of cool, you want something that looks amazing. Our next transport is a heavy transport. Important to note that the other transports you can put in your Crusade detachment, which is quite nice. However, the Gorgon transporter is a heavy transport and it's 275 points and it fits 45 dudes inside of it. Dudes, dudettes, whatever you want. It's got front armor of 14, side of 11. It's got 10 hull points, but it is still a 3rd line vehicle. That's what we're talking about. But it does have an assault vehicle, so you are going to be able to charge out of it, which is pretty spicy. It is a super heavy transport, which is good, which means it can never be statused, which is pretty cool. This is a model that's no longer available from Games Workshop, and you would just have to pick it up somewhere or 3D print it. You can have sponsor-mounted heavy stubbers, flamers, or bolters as well. This is for the person that absolutely wants to slap 10 Ogryns inside of it and kick it up the board. Also worth pointing out, if it's a super heavy transport, it can take up to 2 units inside of it, where normally a transport can only take 1. So that's a good reason to maybe also take it, throw it up the board, throw some Ogryns out, although I prefer mine in trucks, but you can put a lot of Ogryns in that bad boy. Now, our next unit is a reconnaissance troop. This is 1 scout sergeant, 4 scouts, and this comes out of the recon section or recon detachment. So you can have 5 additional scouts at 8 points per model, taking you up to a unit of 10. 50 points for the base 5. Now, they're ballistic skill 3. They've got a 5-up save. They're just humans, right? What's important is their equipment. Importantly, you can equip them with having a militia long rifle. 1 in 5 models in this unit may have their militia shotgun exchange for a long rifle. So you can have 2 out of a unit of 10. The reason that's important is the long rifle has precision 5+, meaning you can pick targets out or characters out of units. I've got a psyker, let's say in a unit of Marines, you can start shooting them for pretty cheap, really. Like It's going to cost me an addition. It's 90 points. It's going to be 100 points to take 2 pot shots with the militia long rifle with breaching and pinning, but it's only strength 4. So not really sure about that. It's got infiltrate 9, so you're going to be able to deploy 9 inches away from the enemy during the deployment phase outside of your deployment. There's support unit 2, so if they do hold an objective, you are going to get 2 victory points for that, which is pretty nice. And they've also got move through cover. So not too bad. Not too bad as a unit. Definitely for 100 points, taking 2 or 3 of these, maybe try and snipe at some characters could put a lot of pressure on your opponent, or drop giant munitions via artillery. Now, I'm actually really excited about the next recon unit. This is the cavalry troop. You start out with a sergeant and 4 other horses, but you can have an additional 5 for 10 points each, which feels very cheap. Very cheap. So you're going to be up to 110 points for a unit. Now, they've got 2 wounds each, but they do only have a 5-up armor save. So let's just be clear. They also have pretty low stats for cool, willpower, and leadership, but we know that we can take a character and put them in to make them fast, to make them more survivable on that front. They move 12 inches, which is great. Now, they're only weapon skill 3, but we might be able to improve that weapon skill by 1 by choosing the right sub-faction. They do have outflank, which means they could come on from the board edge, but that means they can't charge that turn. We don't want that. They've got Firestorm, so they're going to be able to fire their militia pistols if you want, which is pretty decent. They've got Vanguard 3, which is great. Vanguard 3 is really solid because if you are able to smash a unit off an objective, you score 3 victory points, which is not bad at all. And they have impact strength, which means on the charge, they are going to be strength 4. But that's not where the story ends, because so far I'm not too impressed. However, any model of this unit may have 1 item from the militia melee weapons list, 1 item from the militia armaments list, or 1 militia lance selected for it for 5 points per model. The militia lance, though, is great. So if you do take a unit of 10, then that's going to be 160 points for 10 of them, and also militia lances. But the militia lance is initiative modifiers +2, taking us up to initiative 5. Attack modifier is 0, although we have impact attack modifier, which is going to take us up to 3 attacks each. Strength modifier is 3, but we also have impact strength. So now we're going to be up to strength modifier of 4, and then AP 3, damage 2. So if we put all of those bits together, we are going to be having 3 attacks each on the charge at strength 7, AP 3, damage 2. Now that's if the impacts... Sorry, just a clarification. That's not quite how it works. So it's important to note that if you do take the lance, then you are going to get 0 attacks if you are charged with the lance. You'll just have to just hit with your 2 attacks with no weapon. But if you charge, you get 1 attack. Although that will be at strength 7, AP 3, damage 2. So much different to what I said. I apologize. So it's going to be, a unit 10 is going to be, with a lance, is going to be 10 attacks on the charge at strength 7, AP 3, damage 2. I was living in a dream world there that was pretty exciting. Now, obviously, you don't just have to take the lances if you don't want to. You're still getting impact strength all the time, which is pretty nice, going up to strength 4. So some of the other weapon modifiers might also be really good because you have 2 attacks each base, which is pretty spicy. So I don't hate that at all. You can also have a Vexilla in this unit as well for +5 points. And you can also take some melter bombs if you want to. I think overall, though, if you take the right weapon options for these guys, because you can have a bunch of the melee weapons, then you can still build a pretty potent combat unit for very cheap, I'm going to say. Now, the survivability is weak because they're humans, but I think very cool. And wow, you can take a Apex detachment where you can have 8 units of these. Our next unit, this is where it gets really wild, is the All-Terrain Patrol. This is a fast attack choice, and you get 1 militia quad bike for 20 points. May include up to 4 additional militia quads for 18 points a model, and every militia quad in this unit may replace with 1 militia trike for 5 points a model. And I know what you're saying, Rob, what the hell are you talking about? Well, here is a trike. Okay. Here is a quad that you're able to get, and here is bikes and another quad, right? So these are all things that you're going to be able to take in a militia army, which is crazy. The quads are toughness 4 with 3 wounds each on a 5-up save. The trikes are toughness 4 with only 2 wounds, but they've got a 4-up save. The trikes are faster, they move 12 inches, and the quads are slower, they move 10. The quad, though, a little bit better in combat with 2 attacks, an additional wound that I talked about. And they've all got, low human stats. They're toughness 4, but strength 3, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3. They have firing protocols 2, so you can fire 2 weapons off them. And they have implacable advance, and they have the irregular special rule. So you can do some really fun stuff with this. Every militia quad in this unit must have 1 item from the militia special weapons list or 1 item from the militia heavy weapons list selected for it. So if we go and have a look at those and look at the, sorry, not this page, the militia special weapons means stubber, long rifle, flamer, grenade launcher, plasma gun, or melter weapon. And heavy weapons is las cannons, autocannons, missile launchers, heavy flamer, heavy bolters, multi-lasers, mortars, and heavy stubbers. So if you wanted to basically replicate, the gun platforms that we looked at earlier from your support squad, but you also wanted them to move really fast, then this is for you. This is an incredibly cool unit. Any militia trike in this unit may have both of its combi bolters exchanged for one of the following: 2 heavy stubbers. 1 militia trike in this unit can have 2 melter guns. 1 militia trike in this unit can have 2 melter guns. And any model in this unit may have 1 item from the militia weapons list. So you can build a crazy army out of this, which is very cool. And they start out very cheap. You're basically paying for 3. I mean, the quads are a pretty good deal, actually. 20 points for 3 wounds at toughness 4 is a pretty good deal. Then you just add the weapon on top. I don't hate that at all. It's actually really good, actually, because I can take a special weapon. So 20 points plus 5 points for a flamer, run them up and just flame template some people, cause some panic. That's pretty funny. Melter guns, 15 points. I'm not mad at that either. That's pretty cool. This is a great unit. Next up, we have the Militia Scout Rover. I know you might be asking yourself, what the hell is this? Thanks to Rebecca for this. You can see here we have ourselves a Cop Rover, the Palatine Enforcer Tauros Venator, and we have ourselves the Achilles Ridge Runner for Genestealer Cults. Both of these are in that Rover category. What's fun about this is you can have one of these, and you can replace this with a Ridge Runner if you want for an additional 10 points. But these are only 35 points for 3 whole points that move 16 for a Venator and 14 for a Ridge Runner. Now, they're not heavily armored, obviously, with their armor only being 10, the Ridge Runner having front armor of 11. They do have move through cover, though, which is pretty good. And they have pintle-mounted twin heavy stubbers. But of course, you're going to be able to replace those for multi-lasers for 10 points, seismic cannons for 15 points, and twin las cannon for 20 points. Twin las cannon on our very cheap 35-point Ridge Runner running around is very cool. So yeah, that's great. So yeah, I would say a really good option to take some very cool units and add them again into a militia's army. Moving on to planes, you have the Thunderbolt Heavy Fighter, which has got twin las cannons, and it's also got a Gravis auto cannon. It's got third line, so you need to be careful for those reactions that might take off its 5 whole points, but it is heavily armored at 12 all around, which is pretty good. Like all of the planes, you don't really technically need them. They don't even need to be on the board. You just do a mission with your plane. It lands, does a mission, and it flies off. So you got to ask yourself, for 110 points, which is very cheap, actually, very cheap. Do you want to try and shoot your twin las cannons, hitting something on a 4? The answer is probably no, but maybe yes as well. Now, also, you've got to roll reserve rolls to see if these come on, so they might not even do the job on the turn that they want. Planes are in a weird position right now, so I'm not super pro this unit. You also gain access to both the Lehman Russ tank, which is a pretty sturdy tank with a load of different weapon options, and also the Malkador heavy tank, which also gives you a lot of different weapon options, including front-mounted weapons. You've obviously got the main cannon, which is the big battle cannon, and you're able to change that around. And you've also got sponsored weapons as well. right? Now, it's important to note that these are 170 points for the Malcador and 130 points for the Lemon Russ. And unlike, and they have the same maybe bonuses in that they're cheap, but weaknesses that Solar Ogs have in that they are ballistic skill 3, so they're hitting on 4s. So often they'll hit nothing. And normally, the reason that these are so good is because you can have so many. But in this roster, you've got so many ways of bringing like an absolute boatload of stuff that's going to miss. Specifically, like, you've got your las cannon heavy sports squads. I'm not really sure these tanks are going to be a key factor. And also, it doesn't really feel like that you are keying in to the traits that we talked about earlier, where you're really customizing your army, because none of these get this. And in fact, these are actually worse vehicles because they have third line. So any glancing hits are going to be pens. So, these are okay, but I wouldn't be playing Militia to play Lehman Russes or Malcadors. Our last vehicle is the Militia Baneblade Super Heavy Battle Tank. That's 500 points. Now, this is a beast. 16 hull points, front armor of 12. Now, but it's ballistic skill 3. So you're just going to be shooting your little heart out. So the big reason you take this is because of its Baneblade Cannon. Baneblade Cannon is one shot in a 7-inch pie plate that's strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. Now, having played against a couple of armies now, I'm not sure that's ever going to do enough damage to get its 500 points back. But it does have more. It does also have a Demolisher cannon built into it as well as hull-fronted twin heavy bolter, which you can change out. You can also have 2 sponson mounted las cannons, which is probably the right choice for what you're shooting at. And you can take hunter killer missiles, and you can also take searchlights as well. Again, I think having a Baneblade is cool. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like what I really want to run from this army is I want to run a lot of the dudes. And that is, I think, the first full army review that I have put up. It's taken me 5 hours to record, and the video is running about 2 hours. So hopefully you've really enjoyed it. I have got a Patreon if you want to help support me to make content like this. It's really the only way that I know anyone cares. Well, you can also leave comments, subscribe, and all those other things. But this is a gargantuan amount of work. And actually, and shout out to all the people in the chat like Rebecca and Dabbod and Scuzzlebutt, who have been hanging out with me for the entire time while we've been looking at these things. It's been super, super fun. But I feel like a 2-hour review and a 5-hour look with a community has only scratched the surface of this incredible document. I'm genuinely very impressed, with the exception of obviously having to cross-reference, because that sucks. I hate the cross-reference in the books and how they're laid out. I'll just shout out like any vehicle, and you could just put the weapons at the bottom. But anyway, I'll complain about that later. I'd like to make a bunch more videos about only this book alone, and that is when you really know that someone's hit like the payload. I've said this multiple times like offline, but now I'll tell you, I can't believe this is free, right? I can't believe this is free. This is crazy. And this book is so complicated and it has so many options. I'm going to throw a challenge out to all of you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple more videos on this. I'm going to talk about the different types of army styles that you can build. And then I'm going to throw out that I will do some army reviews. I'm going to do out some army reviews. So the idea is, because I'm going to definitely do one based around Ogryns. The idea is that we're going to build, or you or I or whatever, my friends, or maybe no one, who cares? It's going to build like write an army list. I'm going to review it, and we'll talk about it from like a narrative construction, like how you put it together, and also like how it might work and how it might play. How is this army going to work as competitively? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, it doesn't have line 2. So it's going to have to get in the mix very quickly with Space Marines. But it can dump literally a million things. I'm already going to go and look at cavalry and maybe picking up some of the Death Creek cavalry. I'm going to look at like Ridge. You can buy like the whole Necromunda range. It's crazy. Most excited I've been maybe in Wargaming. That's a crazy take. Like, I'm knackered. It's 10 o'clock at night here at recording. most excited I've been. It's really exciting. Brilliant. Brilliant fun. Brilliant fun. So I'm going to be making loads more videos. I'm going to do army reviews and let me know what you think of the video, but I've really enjoyed it. Thanks very much. I'll see you soon. Bye.